of healthcare and research professionals working around the clock, ensuring people's safety and continuing research. I'm proud to say that we have managed to emerge successfully with breakthrough innovations, and we continue to do so. Ethics Committee is an important stakeholder in clinical research, and which has played a significant role in ensuring the safety, rights, and well-being of research participants. And this becomes more crucial during COVID times. Today, we have with us experts with extensive experience, Dr. Ganesh Thakle and Dr. Mrunalini Kalikar, to share their insights on navigating the challenges faced by Ethics Committee during COVID times. Along with them, we have industry experts, Ms. Deepal Patel and Mr. Rakesh Dadhania, to give their practical insights on how digitalization helps in managing the ethics committees effectively. I have a gentle request to all the registered participants to please confirm your attendance in the comment section. If you could include your name and the organization or institute that you're from. Also request you to post all your questions in the comment section, and they'll be forwarded to the speakers for their responses. Without any further delay, let me take this opportunity to introduce the moderator for today's webinar, Mr. Rakesh Dadhania, Director, Quinity Clinical Research and Executive Member of Human Ethics Committee Association. Mr. Rakesh has more than 18 years of experience in working with CROs, sponsors, and sites for end-to-end management of clinical trial. He was awarded ISCR Hall of Fame for the year 2020. With this, I invite Mr. Rakesh to take over from here.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mr. Rakesh, please.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for the introductions and the opening remarks. Thank you all for joining for the today's event, and it's been a privilege to have this sessions organized wherein the next 2 hours is going to be full of experiences that you will hear from our experts, and we have a distinguished, as Sarah mentioned, we have a distinguished panelist. And if you look at how the next 2 hours are going to shape up, just a sneak peek of the situations, what you will see in next 2 hours. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we will begin as an opening batsman from Dr. Ganesh, who will take us through roles and responsibilities of EC members as per ICMR and ADCT rules. Once this is done, then we will move to Dr. Mrunalini, who will take us from her experiences of how the EC's ethics committee is managed during pandemic time, and she is going to come up with lots of practical experiences how she is managing the EC forte at GMC Nagpur. Then once this is done, then we will move to some of the practical experiences from Ms. Deepal Patel from Zydus Hospital, and she is going to share with us, a very practical insight how she could manage her research site, effectively using the digitalization, especially the EC components clearly. And so this is a mix of academic and government and the private hospital experiences that we are actually bundling for you today. After that, there will be a panel discussions, for all the expert speakers, and then we'll open up sessions for the audience if there are any questions, and the experts will respond to your questions, comment. Please note that your questions you keep posting on the YouTube channel that you have, and our team will pose it back to there, and you will get responded. And in case if because of paucity of time, if we are not able to respond, we'll assure you that we will come back to you with the question being answered, after the sessions. So with that in mind, I am taking a privilege to invite Dr. Ganesh for the first sessions. But before that, again, I have a privilege to introduce him. So Dr. Ganesh is having a unique education qualifications, having post-graduations in medicine with pharmacology. Along with that, he is also a lawyer. Uh, Currently, he is holding the post of head of the department and professor at AIMS Nagpur. As a part of, along with this responsibility, he is very dynamically and actively involved with different roles and responsibilities as a EC member secretary of AIMS, as well as EC chairperson at GMC Nagpur. And he's also a dean of exam. He's also widely associated with so many other activities that he is a national assessors and national GCP trainer of NABH uh, for the ECs. Also, he works as a secretary at National Workshop on Scientific Writing. If you look at on the publication sites, he is a reviewer of 9 international journal. He has a credit of 58 publications, research papers, and dynamically, as I said, he keeps organizing workshop for GCP ethics and statistics. And on his teaching front, he has been awarded 3 times Best Teacher Award. So, feeling very proud, Dr. Ganesh, to introduce and the stage is for you to take up. Welcome, Dr. Dakle.
Thank you, sir. Can I share my slides?
Sure.
Is it visible to all?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So, good afternoon to everybody. First of all, I am thankful to our friend Mr. Rakesh for giving us the opportunity to act as faculty on today's workshop. And my topic is role of EC members in protocol review. As mentioned by Mr. Rakesh, in the last 1.5 year, because of the COVID, the responsibility of ethics committee member becomes very important to review the protocol as early as possible, sometimes even one day also. So it becomes very pertinent how to review the protocol in COVID situation or in routine day-to-day activity, and what is the risk and benefit ratio, how to go ahead with that one. All is important, and therefore today's topic, that is role of ethics committee in protocol review, what I am taking is also important for all ethics committee members. Not only just that, it is also important for principal investigator as well as sponsors. So objectives of my topic will be, at the end of lecture, all the participants should be able to know the ethics committee composition in short, then roles and responsibility of individual EC committee members, then what are the various elements of review during any protocol, and lastly the conclusion. So according to new drug and clinical trial rule, composition of this ethics committee for regulatory trial composed of, there should be at least 7 members, maximum could be 15 members, and it is mandatory that every ethics committee should have chairperson from outside the institute. And this outside the institute becomes very important word, because to maintain unbiased nature of the ethics committee, it is mandatory to have chairperson from outside the institute. Again, this is a mix of medical, non-medical, scientific, non-scientific, and lay person. And in this constitution, at least one female member should be there. If it is a ethics committee of regulatory trial, then there is no dual role for single person. Means if I am a pharmacologist, I will act only as a basic medical scientist, not as a chairperson or not as a member secretary. But if the ethics committee for academic clinical research, then a single person can act as a dual role. Sometimes, if ethics committee requires subject expert, they can invite them to offer their views. But in that case, subject expert don't have the power to vote during decision process. Then again on depending on the disease condition, specific patient groups may represent in ethics committee. So quorum of ethics committee for regulatory trial consists of 5 members along with their supporting staff. Supporting staff means one person should be act as a coordinator of the every ethics committee. As far as quorum requirement is concerned, this out of these 5 lay person, social scientist, legal person, clinician, and basic medical scientist, these two, that is clinician as well as basic medical scientist, they should have postgraduate qualification and adequate experience to become the member of any ethics committee. And if it is a drug trial, then basic medical scientist should be the pharmacologist. Then coming to the main role of individual ethics committee member, as all of you know, main function of ethics committee is to protect the safety, rights and well-being of subject participants in the clinical trial. And to protect their safety, rights and well-being, it is also necessary to know all the 5 persons, that is lay person, social worker, legal person and clinician along with basic medical scientists. They should know their individual role in functioning of ethics committee. If they know their primary role correctly or individual role in a better way, they can take safety, rights and well-being measure for protection of subjects automatically. Now coming to the first, that is chairperson. Now chairperson is the main person of every ethics committee. He is the respected person from the society and that person should have previous ethics committee functioning knowledge or existing member of any ethics committee. Whenever somebody wants to go for any meeting, then chairperson is the first person to whom member secretary should contact. And chairperson is having n number of responsibilities to call the meeting, to do the signs and like to play a role as a stimulator along with help to reach the consensus. If there is no consensus for any clinical trial protocol approval, there is the responsibility of the chairperson to help to reach the consensus. Then if there is any clinical trial protocol for expedited review, then again chairperson plays very important role. Signing authority, chairperson has got signing authority in case of final approval, but it again depends on standard operating procedure whether to sign on final approval or provisional approval. Then chairperson supervises the conduct of all meetings and lastly he decides the date of ethics committee meeting. So these are the main roles and responsibility of chairperson. So all these are very important responsibilities and therefore chairperson should be respected person from the society and he should know the knowledge of the research in human beings. Then second key person is the member secretary. So what are the Responsibilities of member secretary. It also plays a very important role. Member secretary coordinate all the meetings, ensure the document reach concerned members well in time. Means what? If the ethics committee meeting is after 7 days, it is the responsibility of member secretary to do email to all ethics committee member regarding their individual responsibility. For example, if he is a lawyer, CTA should be sent to the lawyer. If he is a lay person, then ethics committee should send informed consent document to the lay person well in advance, so that all the ethics committee members, especially the three one, social worker, lawyer, and layperson, should read all the documents and they should be ready to ask the question to the principal investigator if there is anything lacking in the documents. There is the responsibility of the member secretary to ensure ethics committee standard operative procedure is followed. Then again, prepare the agenda for the meeting. Then he collect the minutes of meeting, write the minutes of meeting, take the sign of the chairperson, record keeping of all the documents of every clinical trial that is going on and already done in the any institute. And member secretary act as a delegated signatory by chairperson. For every document, it is not possible for chairperson to sign. Therefore, chairperson delegate the responsibility on the member secretary. Again, overall administration of ethics committee is looked by the member secretary, and therefore, most of the time or every time, he is the person who is selected from inside the institute. Then third person is the clinician. Main role of clinician is to provide the medical inputs on the protocol, informed consent form, and other documents. Along with this, it is his responsibility to know or to ensure that in the trial, all the patient should receive standard of care. If it is a placebo use, how it is justified, what is the sample size, dosing interval of every trial, what are the various concomitant medications and prohibited medications that are receiving to the subject and whether it is ethical, along with what is the risk and benefit to the patient. If risk is more than the benefit, then it's the responsibility of the clinician not to go ahead with the approval of the trial. Then again, proper age group should be mentioned. For example, if it is a arthritis trial, osteoarthritis or something, then general age group is more than 30. And if protocol says that age is between 10 to 60, then it's the responsibility of the clinician not to allow such trial for the in the institute. Then again, if it is a Me Too trial, it is the responsibility of the clinician and to take the clinical judgment for the trial. The most important implications or responsibility of the clinicians to go ahead with what are the inclusion criteria and what are the exclusion criteria mentioned in the protocol, whether it is justified or not. At the same time, this clinician should have postgraduate qualification along with basic medical scientist. So these are the roles and responsibility of the clinician in the ethics committee. Most of the time, according to my knowledge, clinician plays very important role if there is any serious adverse event or when there is a confusion whether to go ahead with the approval or not, clinician gives the final decision. Then comes the basic medical scientist. If it is a drug trial, should be the pharmacologist. He provides input on the investigator brochure. Investigator brochure is nothing but this is the brochure which contains everything about the drug trial, whether it is phase 1, phase 2, whatever the trial that has been done along with the drug, everything should be mentioned in the investigator voucher, and it's the responsibility of the basic medical scientist to take care of that. Whether safety of the drug is established or not. If it is a phase 1 or phase 2 trial, most of the time pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetic of the drug has to be seen in phase 1 and 2. Again, it is the responsibility of the basic medical scientist if it is a phase 3 trial to go ahead with phase 1 and phase 2 trial, what is dynamic and what is pharmacokinetic of the current drug. Then lab procedure which they are going to do to look the design of the study as well as sample size, whether it is proper or not. Along with this, if there is use of biological sample, whether it is proper, to see the preclinical data and whether protocol adequately addresses issue of all this matter or not. For example, if the preclinical data suggests that this drug produces depression in the animal, then it's the responsibility of the basic medical scientist that depression patient should not be included in phase 1, 2 or 3 trial. Then again to see the qualification of principal investigator, whether the PI is having good clinical practice certificate, details of serious adverse event and reporting time limit from the principal investigator. Sometimes it may happen that principal investigator present the study before the ethics committee member, and when they ask PI what is the reporting time if there is an AC, sometimes they may not be knowing. If these such simple questions are not knowing by the principal investigator, then it is difficult for the ethics committee to give approval to such principal investigator. Again, the responsibility of it is the basic medical scientist to see all ethical issues that has been occurred in the clinical trial protocol and other procedure involved in the study. Again, like clinician, this basic medical scientist should have postgraduate qualification to review clinical trial protocol. So this is about the four, that is member secretary, clinician, chairperson, and basic medical scientist. Now, three persons which plays a very pivotal role in reviewing the protocol is the legal expert. Then what are the various responsibilities of the legal expert? One, to go into the details of clinical trial agreement and to look into the matters like which are the parties that have been involved in clinical trial agreement, what is the scope of agreement, responsibilities of various parties in the agreement, and what is the payment details to the subject. So it's the responsibility of the legal expert. Sometimes what we found, basically individual role is not known to these three persons, then it becomes difficult for them how to go ahead with the review of any clinical trial. So the responsibility of the ethics committee member secretary to look into all these matters. Sometimes they may go ahead with the special workshop for these three people. Second responsibility of legal expert is whether 7 incidences of SA included in the clinical trial or not. If it is not included, they should ask for inclusion of all these 7 incidents of serious adverse event. Whether adequacy of the amount is there or not. Sometimes there may be 1,000 patient and amount of mm, insurance is only in the 1 crore. So it is not sufficient for 1,000 people, just 1 crore rupees. So it is the responsibility of the legal person to go into the detail of that, to see whether any clause is violating the norm along with confidentiality and dispute resolution. The most important responsibility of this legal person is update with the regulatory requirements and interpretation of the same. Now, in the from the year 2013, n number of notifications have been received by DCGI, and we being the routine persons or normal persons, we don't have the. It is very difficult for us to interpret the notification. So it is the responsibility of the legal person to interpret the notification issued by DCGI time to time. Again, insurance should cover the participants for injury due to all causes mentioned in the rule 122 DAB. Then he checks the validity. Most of the time it happens that today is the day of ethics committee meeting and validity expires day before 2 days. So again, it is the responsibility of the legal expert to say that unless and until we get the new insurance, we should not give the final approval. Then countries for which the policy provide the cover and liability limit, again per person as well as total. And last responsibility is whether that trial is having indemnity of both investigator as well as sponsor, whether it could be a part of CTA or the separate document. So legal person plays very important role as far as clinical trial agreement is concerned. There is social scientist or philosopher or ethicist, anybody, both generally social scientists and lay person, they are having the more or less same function in ethics committee. Mainly, they should look for community perspective point of view, whether the research is good or not. Then informed consent process. Both are responsible for this informed consent process. What has been written in principle, patient information sheet. Then compensation has been provided to the subjects or not. Then design of the trial. Sometimes if it is a phase 1 trial, there may be a most of the volunteers they are withdrawing the patient blood for a single day 4 or 5 times, that too more than 100 or 200 ml of blood. And if it is a patients like terminal ill patient, it become difficult for the subject to give such amount of blood. So it's the responsibility of the social scientist or lay person to go for design of the trial. The number of blood samples, how much, postal access to involved community. This postal access means access to the drug after the trial is over. Again, it depends on both principal investigator, sponsor, as well as ethics committee. If all the three are involved and they have recommended the drug to the sponsor, then they can give the post-trial access to the involved community. If at present for that disease there is no available alternative to the treatment, then confidentiality should be maintained. It's the responsibility of social scientists. Vulnerable population, then frequent monitoring can be advised by the social scientist and the legal person. And recruitment process, how it is going to be there. It is the responsibility of the social worker. Then last person is the lay person. This plays very important role. Previously, such qualification was not mentioned in ICMR guideline, all these things. But in the year 2017, they have mentioned that layperson should have some knowledge, or even though they are having basic medical, basic science degree before the 5 years, they can be included as a layperson. They are having very low main important role in the process of informed consent process. How it is mentioned in all the three language. If it is a Maharashtra, it should, then informed consent process should be in all the three, English, Marathi, and Hindi. If it is Karnataka, again their language should be there. So it is the responsibility of the lay person to see whether they have been included or not. Then trial procedure, how much trial procedures are there. Then postal access, as mentioned previously, along with compensation issue, along with confidentiality, things from the subject perspective. And it's the responsibility of the layperson that there should not be any exploitation of the subject in the clinical trial. If such is the case, he can say or he can act the proper justification for exploitation of the subject. The main responsibility of this lay person is to go in detail about the subject diary should be simple or not. For example, if it is in Maharashtra, it should be in Marathi so that every subject should fill that diary in a proper way. So the responsibility of the lay person to have all these accesses in a proper way. This is about the all the individual members' responsibility. Coming in short about how to go ahead with the review of the process. Now there should be some potential questions to ask while reviewing the proposals by every person. And most of the questions are, if there are use of placebo, what is the justification of placebo? It is justifiable to use placebo even if standard of care is available to the subject. And all the members of the ethics committee should go for risk and benefit analysis. If risk is more and benefit is less, don't give the approval. If the on the contrary, if the vice versa is true, you can go ahead with the final approval. So then again, trial design, as I mentioned, control group, if placebo is comparison, what is the justification? And according to declaration of Helsinki, it states that benefits, risk, and effectiveness of new intervention must be tested against those that of the best current proven intervention. And use of placebo or no treatment is acceptable in studies where no current proven intervention exists. Means if somebody want to use the placebo, it is only where no current proven intervention exists. If there is no current proven intervention, then and then only you can use the placebo. Otherwise, you should give the standard of care to both the groups. So it's the responsibility of all ethics committee members to go into detail discussion about the placebo use. Then how to assess the risk? There are two or three risks may be associated with the any protocol, number one, it would be a physical harm to the subject, or if somebody is withdrawing the 5 ml or 10 ml blood, it is a physical harm. Sometimes it may be a psychological harm, sometimes because of the breach of the confidentiality, or if some person or some subject is suffering from HIV infection and you are telling the other person that the person is suffering from HIV, again it consists of breach of confidentiality and it comes under the psychological harm, or sometimes it may be a economic risk. Every time patient doesn't get the money to recruit in the trial, so sometimes it is a economical risk also. So these are the three risks: physical, psychological and economic. All three risks has to be commented while uh, you are reviewing the any protocol. Now, all these risks may be sometimes mentioned in investigator brochure results, and this you can see from the results of previous animal as well as human studies. Sometimes risk may be associated with receiving no treatment at all to one group. Sometimes there may be a study procedure like MRI, CT scan, other procedures. Sometimes there may be a washout period to the subject like diabetes, hypertension. Some studies may be a dose escalation studies. One group may be receiving a dose in the dose of 5 milligram. Other group may be receiving 20 milligram. The group which is receiving 20 milligram may have more risks than the group receiving the 5 milligram. So all this is the responsibility of the ethics committee member to review the protocol in a detailed way. Again, responsibility of ethics committee member to see whether the PI is competent in area being studied. For example, if it is a vaccine study, then pediatrician should be there. Most of the time, it is a phase one study. Volunteers always on the risks. If it is a random assignment to treatment groups, then participants in one group may not receive the treatment that turns out to be more efficacious. Again, risk is increased. If it is a double blind study and something wrong happens, serious adverse event, we don't know which group is receiving the placebo and another is the active group. Again, their risk is very, very high. And in all types of research, this may add risk of invasion of privacy as well as confidentiality. Privacy means personal, whereas confidential means mostly related to the data of the subject. So all these are the risks associated with any trial when you are reviewing any clinical trial of phase 1, 2 or 3 and 4 phases. Now there are some procedure in which we can less the risk in clinical trial or research committee can advise to go for less risk. Number one, incorporate the stopping rule, frequent monitoring, excluding the individuals like pregnant women and diabetics, trained personnel to who can respond to the emergencies. To page PI should be good enough in experience. Then interim analysis by data safety monitoring board and ongoing assessment of adverse event from the study. If you apply all these guidelines, then risk to the subject can be minimized. Then lastly, how to assess the benefit. There may be a physical benefit to the subject in the because of improvement of the disease. Sometimes maybe psychological benefit, comfort from the suffering. Initially tumor was there, but after surgery tumor is removed. That called act as a psychological benefit. Sometimes economic benefit. Most of the time now there are monoclonal antibody studies which is cost is very, very high, 50,000 or 1 lakh. Again, patient may have economic benefit. And last benefit is to the society. If something good enough, for example, this COVID vaccine, both Covishield as well as in our country, Covishield as well as Covaxin, both are found to be very good. So all the benefit can go to the society. So you can assess the benefit as well as risk. And after assessing both, if benefit is more, you can go ahead with the final approval. Then again with what is important in informed consent process along with all these things, all these has to be seen: compensation, treatment available, knowledge that participation is voluntary. Is the consent document understandable to subject? It has to be looked after by every ethics committee member who is going to obtain the informed consent process. If appropriate, is there a children's assent has to be taken if less than 18 years, and contact details of ICF should be mentioned in the ICF. So other point which are useful in reviewing the clinical trial are insurance, GCP certificate, CV of PI, translation certificate, advertisement procedure, clinical trial agreement, CTR and DCGI approved. So with all these, it is very, very important, and my message will be protection of participants plays very, very important role whenever you are doing the clinical trial assessment or the review. Both scientific as well as ethical review plays very important role, and every member should contribute in that. Full review, there should be at least 5 members, and if you do a good review, full review initially, then there is no issue for the ethics committee, even if the trial lasts for 5 to 10 years. And therefore, I must say that there should be detailed discussion during the review in every clinical trial protocol. In the last 1.5 years, though COVID is there, but every ethics committee should take care that this scientific and ethical review should not be hampered in any way. At the same time, all the ethics committee members should be vigilant as and when they receive the protocol from the ethics committee, either by physically or by on internet or email. They should try to read it as early as possible so that ethics committee can give the approval as early as possible, and they can start their clinical trial as early as possible. With this, if there are any questions, it will be welcome from my side. Otherwise, I am having 1 or 2 questions. We can go ahead with that one, or exercise or group activity. Rakesh ji, should I go ahead with the exercise, or should we take the questions first?
So, sir, thank you for the presentation. There are questions actually.
Okay, go ahead then. Question will be more important.
Yeah. So we can go ahead with the question in the interest of time. So there are questions on, there are many questions actually, and looks like it is. So one question is the use of placebo without standard of care in COVID study should be approved from ethics committee?
No.
This is a question from Mamta.
Mamta madam, at present, there are guidelines from the AIMS Delhi or ICMR. Whatever they have given the guidelines for COVID, whether it is mild, moderate or severe cases, that standard of care should be received to the every subject. On and above, as an add-on therapy, you can give the other new drugs. These are the guidelines issued by ICMR or by the DCGI also. Because at present there is no standard guideline that this should be given and this should not be given. So as per guidelines by ICMR or this AIMS Delhi, generally most of the people, they are following these guidelines, and if there is any new drug in COVID, then that can be added as a add-on therapy.
Thank you.
Next question.
Sorry, sir, you were saying something?
Next question, sir, if it is
possible.
Okay.
So there was there are actually many questions. Maybe, sir, we can respond back to them in the interest of time. So Mr. Chakravarti is asking, is the payment details should clearly be explicitly stated on the insurance when you were talking about from legal point of view?
Payment details of what, sir? Payment details to whom?
To the subjects.
Individual patient, we can't say that one. In the insurance, it has been mentioned that total insurance of this trial is this and this one. And if there is any serious adverse event, and if that is related to the clinical trial drug, and whatever the amount that has been told by ethics committee, it has to be approved by the DCGI, and then sponsor has to give according to the DCGI rule. It is compulsory for the sponsor to give all the amount that has been mentioned by the DCGI, but not necessary to give all about details to the patient. Yes, it is correct that whatever the traveling allowance they are giving per visit, it is mentioned in the informed consent document.
Okay. Thank you, sir. There are many questions coming up from related to the lay person's role and how do you. So one question somebody is asking, can you translate your sessions in Marathi because it will be easy, Mr. Deepak Rao Kadu, and Ms. Swati Gupta is looking for what are the challenges that you observe, especially from non-scientific EC member, and how do you address them?
For non-scientific persons,
Yes, non-scientific EC members.
non-scientific EC members. So there are n number of questions that posed before the ethics committee for non-scientific person. Number one, there is more need of training to them, and for that purpose, we can ask them to read the protocol at home and be prepared what the question to be asked during the presentation of principal investigator. As well as we can allow them to ask at least one question for every protocol, so that they say that yes, I am the part of this ethics committee. As well as we can encourage them as if they are the important as that of the other members of EC. As well as take separate workshop for them only to update their knowledge. And first thing is that explain individual role of lay person and other two persons in EC functioning. If you take care of all these things, I am sure that all these three persons, lawyer, social worker, and lay person, will benefit from this, and they will play an active role in decision making of the any clinical trial protocol.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I think there are a lot of questions coming, but maybe in the interest of time, can we move?
Yes,
And Dr. Ganesh, can I request, if possible, I know we planned for this exercise. Can we park that in the later session if we have a time? Is that
yes,
okay?
yes. During question and answers, we can go ahead because time may be short for other
Yes.
speakers. We can
Yes,
go
yes.
next.
Okay. So thank you so much, Dr. Ganesh,
Thank you, Rakesh
for
ji.
taking us. I think you, as per me, you have given something of a very quick, handy toolkit for ECs, that what are the membership requirements, what are the roles, and what are the parameters, the practical insights, typically that each role should be cognizant or vigilant about. And giving such examples that you were sharing was very, very handy. So thank you so much, Dr. Ganesh. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, moving on to, can I move to the next? Uh, yeah. So, I think I need to, if you can stop sharing, Dr. Ganesh.
Yes. Yes.
So, I'm moving on to the next topic of the session is uh, the next session of the topic is actually our speaker is Dr. Brunalini. So can you, I hope you can hear me, Dr. Ganesh? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Your
Okay.
screen is still visible.
Thank you. So would like to invite the EC for a next topic of, EC functioning, the practical insights from Dr. Munalini Kalikar. I'm again a privilege to introduce her, as she is a postgraduate, medicine with pharmacology, currently holding a post of associate professor and in charge of the UG teaching at Department of Pharmacology, Government Medical College, Nagpur. Along with that, she is, also holding responsibility of member secretary at Indian at Ethics Committee of the GMC Nagpur. Along with that, she has overall 18 years of teaching experience, received awards. You can see in 2003, 4 for this, for the study, and she has also been a co-author of topic which is very, very important, the statistical part, the basic statistic analysis of original studies in monograph, a book titled A Guide to Scientific Career Communication, Conducting Research and Writing Effective Papers. And this was published by Willie Blackwell John Willie and Sons Incorporation. So without taking much time, yeah, can I invite Dr. Brunalini? Ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Rakesh, for the kind introduction. And at the outset, I would like to thank all the organizers, especially the Queenery Clinical Research and Mr. Rakesh Dadania for this opportunity. So I'll be starting. I'll be sharing my slides. Yes, are the slides visible?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm audible, I hope.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm talking on the challenges for ethics committees during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the topic will be covered under the following headings: introduction, functioning of EC during the pandemic, various challenges that the ethics committees have faced during this pandemic, and finally the conclusion. So before we go into the main topic, I would like to share our experience, that is the experience of the Institutional Ethics Committee, Government Medical College, Nagpur, as far as the number of clinical trials and the proposals related to biomedical and health research were reviewed. So before COVID-19, that is, we have taken 2 periods, that is before COVID-19, January 19 to February 20, you can see the number of trials that were reviewed. The clinical trials reviewed by EC were 39, while as the academic studies were 66. And during the COVID period, that is the period from March 20 to August 21, the COVID trials that were reviewed by this EC were 26, the non-COVID clinical trials were 40, and the academic studies were 52. So the number of trials that were reviewed during the COVID period as compared to those before the COVID period, where there was a huge increase in the number. You can see it is 66 as compared to 39. So starting with the introduction, since December 2019, the world is facing a new humanitarian emergency, that is COVID-19. You all are aware of it. And as no effective therapy for a treatment is available, research is a priority in finding new strategies for disease prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. Therefore, the role of ethics committees in reviewing research during this pandemic is very important. And this requires the ethics committee to improve the review efficiency, but at the same time, they have to make sure that the standard of ethical review is not relaxed. So during this pandemic, various our regulators and various organizations, they have released various guidance documents, especially for the researchers and stakeholders for conducting research during this pandemic. The Indian Council of Medical Research has released National Guideline for Ethics Committee reviewing biomedical and health research during in April 20. Similarly, the FDA has released the guidance on conduct of clinical trials of medical products during COVID-19 pandemic, and this was in March 20, and then it has been revised several times. So if we go through these documents, the take-home message is that the patient's safety, welfare, and dignity remains paramount, and it forms the basis for all the guidance documents. So the role and the responsibility of the ethics committee in this pandemic, it remains the same, except that a few specific aspects, they need to be addressed without compromising the scientific validity as well as the ethical requirements. So various challenges the ethics committees have faced during this pandemic. As far as the functioning is concerned, they have to confront with the novel and complex issues. So the issues were mainly regarding the standard operating procedure, the absence of SOP to review research during humanitarian emergencies, then how to do the review of the protocols that are submitted to the ECs because of the lockdown situation. Then there were also difficulties as far as monitoring is concerned, because monitoring is also another very important responsibility of the ethics committee. So we will be discussing these challenges. The first challenge I would like to focus on is regarding the amendment of the standard operating procedure. So most of the ECs, they did not have the standard operating procedure for reviewing research in emergency situation. And this absence of SOP actually hampered the functioning of the ethics committee in during this period. And therefore, the amendment of the SOP to allow greater flexibility in their working during the pandemic lockdown situation, it became the necessity. So while amending the SOPs, the ECs should look into various factors or various issues. The first and very important being the submission of documents to the ethics committees. Now, as you all know that during COVID-19, because of the lockdown situation, the staff of the EC office was not able to attend the office, and the documents also could not be physically transported to the EC office. Some of the ECs, they are accepting only paper-based submissions for a protocol and protocol-related documents. Some of the ECs, they are using a combination of both. That is, they are accepting paper-based submissions of the protocol and related documents, which is kept for their record. And at the same time, the researchers are also advised to submit electronic versions of the protocol and related documents, so that these can be circulated to the members via email, and the members can send their comment via mail. Some of the ECs, I should say a few ECs, a handful of ECs where they are digitalized. And so in this lockdown and COVID-19 situation, the ECs who were dependent on paper-based system were affected to a great extent. So in this period of emergency, ECs may accept submission of e-copy research protocol and related documents and electronic, as well as the electronic submissions, so that it can be easier for them for a review as well as sending it to the members. Then if we talk about the review process, the ECs have received, some of the ECs, and especially though the ECs which are attached to some institutes like our institute, which is a government medical college, Nagpur. It is a tertiary care center and it is one of the biggest institute in Central Asia. So we have received large number of urgent projects during this period, and it is likely that some other ECs may also have received urgent projects and large number of projects during this period. And there was pressure on ECs from the regulators as well as stakeholders like the sponsors for a quick response, and this quick response was much emphasized on to accelerate the development of various drugs. And I think this increased the chances of hasty decision making, errors and lapses in the usual ethical standards. And to this were added some more difficulties for the ethics committees, like conducting online meeting, more frequent meeting, as they have received a large number of protocols, and online circulation of the project related documents. So the ICMR guidelines, which was released in April 20, especially for this pandemic, as a guidance document for ethics committees, they have categorized the research that was accepted during this period into 3 types, and this which require ethics review. The first is the new research which is directly related to COVID-19. The second is already ongoing non-COVID research, and the third category is new non-COVID research. So what ICMR guideline is saying that during emergencies like the COVID-19, the ECs can have expedited review for the review of protocols, or they can even have unscheduled full committee meetings. However, as per the guidelines from ICMR, the quorum requirements are to be fulfilled. The quorum requirements should be fulfilled as per the guideline, the regulations of CDSCO for the clinical trials, and the guidelines of ICMR for biomedical and health research. So there is no compromise on quorum requirements. And the guideline is saying that if we are doing an expedited review, if the EC is going for an expedited review, full ethical review can follow whenever the next meeting is held. Now, as per the ICMR guideline, we have seen the 3 categories of research. And if the priority for ethics review in a defined time frame is given to COVID-19 related research, the non-COVID research must not suffer due to COVIDization. So what this guideline wants to say is that the protocols which are related to infectious diseases or communicable diseases or injuries are very important, and they should also be looked into, taking into consideration the risk that the protocol may pose on to the subject in this COVID-19 situation. So these protocols should not be suffered due to COVIDization. If we talk of the ongoing review which is already going on in the institute, the guideline is saying that they can be continued depending on the risk that the present situation pose on the participants. If it is having a negative risk, the EC can take the decision accordingly, and then some other temporary measures or other measures can be adopted, like a temporary halt of the ongoing research project, or the site activation can be postponed, or the visit schedules can be changed, like the physical visits, they can be converted into e-visits, or only necessary visits can be considered. Then as far as the investigational product, administration of investigational product is concerned, it can be shipped to the patient directly. So such type of measures can be adopted for ongoing trials. Okay. Then while when the EC is doing the review of especially the all type of protocols, but when it is reviewing a COVID protocol, it has to make sure that the ethics committee is registered with appropriate agency, that is the Department of Health Research for Biomedical and Health Research and the Central Drug Standard Control Organization for Regulatory Clinical Trials, and the meeting should fulfill the quorum requirements. And for all the COVID trials, registration on CTRI is mandatory as per the ICMR guidelines. Now, like for other protocols, it is the member secretary to categorize the proposals into exempted, expedited, and full review depending upon the protocol that is submitted. Now, while reviewing, the EC takes into consideration various issues, isn't it? Like social value, payment, then compensation provisions, the benefit risk assessment, the confidentiality agreement, the scientific validity of the proposal. So various issues are addressed by the EC during the review. So these issues, they remain the same for when the EC is reviewing the COVID protocol as well. But I want to emphasize on some issues, especially for COVID protocols, when it is reviewed by the EC. And the first is the benefit risk assessment. So as far as COVID-19 is concerned, you all know that there is the dearth of information of the disease, and you cannot predict about the risk as well as the benefits at the outset. And you have, every day you have some new information available. So although EC is going to review about the benefit risk assessment, the PI must identify the risk and benefit of the research after a careful literature review. And it is always a good practice to incorporate a dynamic benefit risk assessment. That is, you can assess the risk and benefit several times during the conduct of the trial, including an interim analysis for futility or utility into the trial design. Then the second important issue that I want to address is regarding the informed consent. So informed consent must be carefully looked by the ethics committee, especially for the COVID protocol. As you all know, there is practical difficulty in reaching out to the patient, and therefore the written informed consent, which we usually take from the patients or the participants, will not be possible in case of COVID research because of the potential infectious nature of the disease. At the same time, the decisional capacity of the participants who are hospitalized or critically ill by COVID, it would be very low, and they cannot differentiate between the review and the benefits of the research. That makes them vulnerable. So if written consent is not possible, the consent could be given orally, or use of electronic methods can be done to document and record as per the ICMR guidelines. So ICMR guidelines have introduced this option of electronic consent, and it says that technology should be utilized to prepare interactive formats, and using electronic tools such as text, graphics, audio, video, podcast, interactive websites, platform to explain information related to a study, and to electronically document the informed assent or consent the same. Electronic methods, that is electronic signature, the digital signature must be reviewed and approved by the EC prior, and the process can be documented through audio or video recording if it is required by the protocol. So then coming to the timelines, if we see that the timelines of the conducting of the meeting, that is the virtual meetings, that is the next issue that needs to be addressed. So the SOPs should be properly amended. The EC needs to decide whether the virtual meeting should be limited to unusual, extraordinary circumstances, or should they be conducted frequently, or if not routinely. So holding virtual meeting through various platforms require a committed and adequately resourced secretariat, committed members willing to review complex protocol, and a stable internet connection. So whenever a virtual meeting is planned by EC should have SOPs for taking the attendance of the member, for addressing various issues like conflict of interest, which are difficult to address whenever a virtual meeting is to be conducted. So all these points are to be considered in the SOP of conducting the virtual meeting by the ECs. Then other point that is important as far as the amendment of SOP is considered is the changes in timelines for reviewing the COVID protocols and various activities of ECs. So as you all know, as a faster response from EC is expected, relaxation of timeline is required, and usual timeline can be shortened for emergency related research. For example, timeline for EC to acknowledge receipt of a communication from an investigator, or timeline for the investigator to reply to EC's letter seeking clarification. But all these should be without compromising on regulatory requirement and without adversely affecting the participants' safety. Then coming to the another important role and responsibility of EC, that is monitoring. So ECs, you all know, they have to monitor the ongoing program which was approved by the EC to see the compliance with the good clinical practice guidelines, and also to see the compliance with the protocol. So in the COVID situation, it is very, very difficult for the ethics committees to monitor what actually happens on the ground, particularly when the research is taking place in isolation facilities. And therefore, close monitoring of the conduct of the clinical trial would be difficult. EC members, usually what the EC members do for monitoring is that they go directly to the site, and then they review various documents and as well as the facilities at the site. But here in the present COVID situations, the EC member cannot physically meet the patient or the site because of the potentially infectious environment. So what option remains for the EC? The one option that we have adopted at our site is a review of scanned documents. Like, you can call the research coordinators or the investigators or the co-investigator or any staff member whosoever is related to the research to your office, and you can have the review of the scanned documents. That could be an option, or otherwise the monitoring can be conducted when the site is completed, study is completed, to ensure that the investigator team complied with the protocol and the good clinical practice during the conduct of the trial. So during monitoring, what all things are important as far as COVID is concerned? One and very important is the patient informed consent form. So what recommended is for the EC that the maximum number of informed consent form to be reviewed. But if the number of patients recruited is very high, or it is the large number, then you can decide like 10% of the total recruitment. Or you can you can have a focused review of few patients like illiterate patients, pediatric subjects, or those falling under vulnerable trial population. The ECs should verify the current version of the informed consent approved by the ethics committee are the ones in use. If we talk about the review of source documents by the EC during monitoring, again, you can have the ECs can have a random review of at least 10%, and especially focusing on the adverse events, the serious adverse event and its management. And EC should also verify whether the trial participant met all the inclusion and none of the exclusion criteria. The data reported in the case report form is in line or is consistent with the source data. Notification of the safety events, protocol non-compliance to regulatory authorities, ethics committee, it was done as per the local regulatory requirements or not. Similarly, we can also have a review on the online study activities, including the informed consent process, sample processing, investigational product preparation, and any other study activities. Review of training records again is very important to ensure that the site staff performing various trial related activities are adequately qualified and trained to perform the delegated task. Interaction with the trial participants if the ethics committee feels necessary. Yes, I think this is very, very important, and you can just, the EC can ensure itself whether the consent was taken in a proper way or not. By directly contact, you can have a telephonic contact with the trial patient and you can ask them what were the difficulties they faced during the study, were they satisfied with the trial related procedures, have they received the payment related reimbursement, or and the consent process, did they understand this was a research, whether the consent was taken or not. So all this you can verify directly by calling the trial patients, and again this we are doing at our site. So it is a real way for the ECs to ensure the participants' safety. The monitoring team can use this information to validate their understanding of the trial, including confirmation of activities performed against the data reported in source data or the case report forms. So finally, we have covered most of the challenges and the solutions that the ECs have faced during this pandemic. And coming to the conclusion, I would say the quality of ethics review must not be compromised despite the time constraints. And for this, the EC members to receive urgent training on distinctive ethical issues raised in the context of pandemic research. Making timely decisions for COVID-19 research proposal is a challenge for the ethics committee. On the question of support, it would be very helpful to have a list of ethics experts who are available for rapid discussion and exchange. So these are my references. Mostly my presentation was based on the National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research that was released in 2017, and for the Ethics Committee in 20, as well as the New Drug and Clinical Trial Rule 2019. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Munnareddy. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking us the practical insights, with the kind of COVID workload that you had faced at GMC, and how starting from the first step that you manage to handle these situations to the ongoing basis, where when we have a little bit more clarity about the COVID and the dynamism of the regulations and their implementations. The most important part, as you said, was the EC monitoring, right? It gives a 360 feedback about the patient's right, safety, and well-being as a pillar of the entire research that we are talking about. So there is a one quick question, maybe in the interest of time, that Mr. Arvind Yadav is asking how EC deals with large number of academic research, as nowadays most of the college have so many residents and all of them is expected to have EC approvals. So, ma'am, any
Yes,
thoughts?
yes, sir. So the ECs, the institutional ECs, which are having a large number of academic trials and biomedical and health research, if a single EC cannot manage, they can have two ECs, like one EC which is looking after the regulatory trial, and the other ECs which is especially managing only biomedical health research and academic study, the dissertation related work of the postgraduate students. Both the ECs having the same type of SOPs, like the EC for biomedical research, following the guidelines from the ICMR, and the other with the CDSCO, but the functioning remains the same. So if the workload is more, the institute can have more than one EC. So the EC can be the type of research, it can be routed to two different ECs, one EC looking after academic and the other the clinical trials. So that can be done for the institutes who are having a large number of academic studies and biomedical and health research.
Right. Thank you for that, sharing that insight. So, ma'am, in the interest of time, there are questions. Maybe we can respond on the
Yes.
on the chat option,
Yes,
and
yes.
then
Sure.
we move to the next session.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nalini.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, moving on to from now to the next. Can you see my screen?
No, sir.
Not yet.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you. So moving on to the third sessions is from Ms. Deepal Patel, and the title of the her session is how digitalization has helped manage ethics committees effectively. And she's going to share her experiences at Zydus Hospital. So Ms. Deepal Patel is a master in science with clinical research as a degree, and she has other lots of degree. Currently she is in charge of clinical research department at Zydus Hospital and healthcare research at Ahmedabad. She's also a executive member of HECA, and prior to that she has worked at various hospitals, namely like Selby Hospital. She has a very practical experience of running studies, handling the inspections, the monitoring visits, and also a part of the internal audit that is required as a part of, hospital quality processes. Can I request Ms. Deepal to present? Ms. Deepal?
Yes, Rakesh.
Thank you.
Should I start sharing my slides?
Sure. Yes, I can see that slide, Deepal. You can go ahead, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Deepal, are you speaking?
No, I am adjusting my slides.
Okay. Sorry. I just
Is my
People,
slides visible to all?
no, Deepal, you want me to flash the slides? Is that okay? Your slides are not visible. Deepal, can I share the screen and you can use?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, we can see your slides. You want me to share the slide?
Yes.
Okay. Wait a minute. Sure, I will do that. You can stop sharing, Deepal.
Okay.
Sorry for this glitch, but now you can see the screen.
Yes.
We can hear you. Go ahead. Sorry for.
Hi, good afternoon, one and all. Dr. Dakle sir, Dr. Sonali madam, and everyone who has joined this webinar to learn more, to know more, and to grow more. I think my lecture can also be called as a postprandial lecture, as most of us have had our lunch around 12:30 to 1, and now it's around 3:15. So, but don't worry, I'm not here to bombard you with lots and lots of information, but rather than I will be sharing you my experiences as to how digitalization has helped manage ethics committee effectively. So talking about the digitalization, without digitalization, this webinar itself wouldn't have been possible, right? So today we all are connected for the session with ease and at our convenience, no matter what our location is, right? So we are able to share information quickly, effectively, and more than that in a lively manner. So thanks to the digitalization. So back in November 2018, my colleague and I were thinking on how to reduce the extra work related to the ethics committee management. We thought about it from various perspectives and then were wondering as how can technology help us with EC. It is rightly said that what you are seeking is seeking you, and the same happened with us. During December 18, Team QCR approached us with the newly developed eIRV portal, which is an end-to-end platform covering sponsor, CRO, site, and ethics committee. So we came to know about its useful features that could make our EC work easier. But then there was the big question in my mind whether DCGI will accept this idea or not. So I referred things online and came across the updated ICMR guidelines, and details of it will be shared in my next slides. So it was clearly mentioned that regulatory authorities are also encouraging, supporting, and recommending the use of it. So I shared this information to my HOD and hospital authorities. Although initially it was challenging for me to convince and then adapt, but it was changeable. So with God's grace, finally we could implement it at our site in January 2019. So looking at the guidelines on use of technology, once we refer guidelines of Indian GCP in section 2.4.2.4, it is mentioned that ethics committee should review every research proposals on human subjects. In the context of the same, section 4.8.1 of the ICMR 2017 also states that the researcher can submit research proposals as a soft copy as well as hard copy. So our ICA GCP E6R2 also encourages implementation of improved and more efficient approaches. So in ICMR guideline, section number 3.4.5 also recommends the use of suitable virtual software for required activities, preferably a video conferences, enabling a face-to-face discussion to manage the social distancing. So if a central regulatory body like DCGI and DHR have adopted digitalization, they must have also deeply thought about it and must have decided to consider the current needs and then adopted the digital way of working accordingly. So needless to say, COVID-19, as was the scenario a year ago, COVID-19 and its restrictions have changed the people's behavior. It has made them less inclined to leave home, given rise to fear of being in crowded places, and so more and more people are willing to try digital platform than ever before. So with regards to the ethics committee, we also faced consequences like meeting were postponed, members were hesitant to meet in person, and efficient management of ethics committee was overall affected.
Deepal, you can let me know when do I put a next slide?
Next. So before digitalization, EC related activities in a way were very tedious. We used to receive documents in boxes. We had to take help of an attendant to bring it to the department. Then we had to verify each documents for that version and date, translations and back translations. We had to document everything on paper. And it was difficult for us to send this bulky submission dossier to the each EC member. So issue related to the travel and transports are also there, maintaining records of it, storage of the bulky files, confidentiality issues while destruction of this file, and much more. So there were issues related to the limitations of access also, review of it, compliance, quality, and overall the process was lengthy and the time consuming and requiring more manpower than now. Next. So it is truly said, necessity is the mother of invention. As discussed earlier, there are many offline challenges. There can be other situations like natural calamities, like earthquake, floods, etc. Even disruption in workflow and activities due to any other unexpected conditions due to weather, health, etc. So now digitalization is advocated by the GCP, required and recommended by the ICMR and NABH also. Even they put SAE reporting is mandatory to be online since March 2021. So unprecedented circumstances like COVID-19 has made it even more evident that it's time to also be online than being just offline. Next. So can we imagine what would have happened if all the old school offline protocols were followed for study COVID-19 vaccine studies and approval? If so, studies would not have been completed as required and eventually vaccine would not have been given to the people in emergency like they were globally. With regards to the functioning of ethics committee, I have divided this ethics committee meeting related activities in 3 steps. So it is pre-EC meeting and activity during EC meeting and the post-EC meeting. So if we compare both the scenario for these activities, we come to know that earlier in paper-based mode, much more time was utilized for the verification. And now we have to upload readily prepared by the sponsor dossier. So even manpower was also utilized to print and circulate documents to the EC member. And now we can save paper. Even there is no requirement of transportation So we can save transportation cost also and manpower also. So, and much more time and transportation costs was utilized in paper-based mode. So now even EC member can review it as per their own convenience and as per their own convenience place. So earlier it was very much difficult to handle bulky files for review, and it was also very much difficult to prepare agenda manually in Word copy. And now we can prepare agenda in online mode. So during EC meeting, earlier we had to bring all EC dossiers to the meeting room, and now we can refer it online if any need arise. So review of safety reports was very much difficult, and now we can refer it from Excel sheet or the list of specific COMs. So become easy review and discussion of specific molecule can be easy. Even paper attendance sheet was used earlier, and even voting and conflict sheets was also made in paper form. Now we can make it online. Both the documents we can make it online in structured format. So in post EC meeting, earlier we used to prepare paper-based interim progress report had been generated, and now we can prepare it online in structured format. Even MOM was also handwritten. Now we can make it online. So study notification also was on paper-based, and now we can make it instant online. Physical archival of document was to be done for storage in area and fire safety and flood proof zone. Nowadays e-archival does not require any specific area and with the specification. So e-archival is very much saving cost. We had a confidentiality and security issues while storage and destruction, and now issues where storage and now we can ensure confidentiality and security of documents through validated system. So can we imagine the role of online portal in COVID-19 vaccine study? So during COVID pandemic, we got proposal of novel corona vaccine study, and with the help of this online portal, we could submit it on the same day to the EC. Due to the fast track mode, we could arrange EC meeting within a week and got quick approval also. So we could start recruitment on 17th day of the EC submission. So we could meet timelines and could reduce the initiation period. So recruitment also could be started earlier, and eventually the study will also close on time. So for this study, EC approval was crucial on the path of recruitment and drug availability. We saw faster processing than ever before in the scenario of COVID. So it was reflected in our team's performance also, and overall work and progress of our team. Here I am sharing one of my experience was occurred in 2019. So during one of the sponsor audits, retrieval of EC notification letter was done through the online portal, and it was very quick. So the use of portal was also appreciated by the auditors. So looking at the practical scenario, earlier in paper-based EC, more manpower was used, and now in digital mode, it is lesser than earlier. In paper-based EC, process was lengthy, tedious, and time-consuming, whereas in digital mode, process is easy, smooth, and convenient. So we can compare turnaround time also. So it is reduced than earlier, and then there may be a chance of error in manual intervention, whereas system can prevent errors. Next. So right now we have currently total 45 studies registered on EIRB portal, and among that 15 are clinical trials from domestic and MNC sponsors and CRO, and 30 are academic studies. which are registered on EIRB portal since over more than 2 years. It has another good feature that we utilize for training of EC members. In order to complete the regulatory requirements of training, there is an option available for an organized training on the online portal. So all in all, if GCP is allowing, DCGI has adopted, ICMR and NABH are requiring and recommending, I think it's time to be in line and be online. So is there any queries from anyone? Thank you.
Deepal, that was quite interesting and practical part. I think there are, of course, appreciations. I was just seeing from the channel people, giving that practical insight is quite helpful, clearly. So thank you bringing that, insights clearly. Thank you, Deepal. So.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have 25 more minutes, and as we were discussing in the initial part, Dr. Ganesh, do you want to take up the exercise that we were talking, and then we take up the questions panel discussion, if that is okay?
Rakeshji, you can go ahead with your question and answer session. No issue. We can skip the exercise. It's not too much important because all the members are not ethics committee member. So you can go ahead with the routine schedule.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure. Thank you. So, so then in that case, we will move to our, panel discussions. And in this, of course, there are questions I'm going to pose to our panelists, and they can share their experiences. And so, first question to our opening batsman, Dr. Ganesh, to you: what are the most frequent challenges that you have been seeing while you are working as a EC members, especially in the COVID time? And we understand that you are working as a member secretary, you are working as a EC member, you are working as a chairperson, so different hats that you are wearing. What are the frequent challenges that you see in your role?
Now, because of this COVID situation, most of the sponsor and regulator, they want early approval to accelerate the drug development process, as research is priority in finding the new strategies for treatment, and that too especially in the vaccine trials. So they want early
Sir, can you
approval.
put your video on if it is okay? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So most of the sponsor and regulator, they want fast approval from the ethics committee. But at the same time, it is also necessary for the ethics committee to submit all the documents by the principal investigator or the sponsor in toto, so that ethics committee can go for early approval. Second thing is that expedited review is also demanded by these sponsors, and review as well as scientific validity of the COVID protocols, as there is a dearth of the information about the disease, which is another issue. And third challenge is that whether to go for the online meeting or the physical meeting. As mentioned by previous faculty members, in COVID, most of the ethics, they are taking online ethics committee meeting. So as mentioned by Sonali also, all the members initially, they were very much resistant to go for online meeting. But after repetitive meetings, now they are able to do all the things online also. Then third challenge is the consent process, as mentioned by Sonali, that consent process is very difficult. Then whether to go for electronic consent, because all the COVID patients are very dangerous to contact. So always better to have electronic consent and all these things. Then fourth one is the challenge is the site monitoring, whether to go personally or whether to ask them to submit the scanned documents, And lastly, in this COVID situation, most of the trial they have coming for Department of Pulmonology or the medicine. And in some of the institute, they are having very less number of principal investigator. So they are also demanding more number of trials that should be allotted to them. So these are the 5 or 6 challenges that we have faced, and accordingly, we have thought about the solutions for it. And at present, we are doing the best work in our institute as well as in different ethics committees.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I can understand, sir, that with the COVID situation, uh, healthcare researchers are how they are making, and the EC members clearly. So thank you for that insight. Can I go to Dr. Mrunalini now? And see, ma'am, we understand that GMC is, I hope you can hear me, Dr. Ganesh,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So, with the workload that you have and the, the challenges that you face, the one that you narrated clearly, right? SOP changes, how you could manage that, with the responsibilities that you had, your your ongoing responsibilities, teaching responsibilities, and your ethics committee responsibilities. So, how you were able to manage that clearly,
Yes.
and how
Yes,
you navigated?
yeah. Actually, it was very difficult for our ethics committee as well as, and as you said, we are managing ECs along with other responsibilities. So this is an additional responsibility on us. So our EC also, we did not have any standard operating procedure for reviewing emergency research review. So, when it started in March 20, everything was at a halt. The ongoing activities at the site as well as our EC activities. Even our office staff, they found it difficult to attend the office because of the lockdown situation. Many were suffering from COVID. So till I think April end and May beginning, all the activities related to EC functions, they were at a halt. And this time then we took ourselves and we prepared our SOPs, and it was very difficult because there was no training, and the guidance document from ICMR, it really helped us, which was released in April 20, and also the FDA guidance document. So we somehow prepared the SOPs, we amended the SOPs for emergency research review, and we then started. Then the second challenge was regarding the online meetings. As I have already told you, the conducting virtual meetings, and being a government institute, we have all the difficulties like having internet facilities. So we have to start with everything. We have to train the members to attend meeting on various platforms like Zoom, etc. Then how to take the attendance, etc. So we all learned during these meetings. We all learned how to amend the SOPs as far as conducting the virtual meetings are concerned. Then, as I have already told you, the bulk of work GMC is receiving is enormous. And the frequency of meetings we have to increase a lot. And as far as the vaccine trial was concerned, even the regulators and the stakeholders, we had a huge pressure for a fast approval and faster review. So we conducted expedited reviews as well. We shortened the timelines for a review of protocols. Like we started accepting protocols 20, if the COVID protocols, if they were received 24 hours prior, we circulated it to the members, expected answers from them in 48 to 72 hours, and in the next 24 hours, we had a meeting. So that was the work that we have done in COVID for the review of protocols. And at the same time, we had biomedical and health research as well. So number of protocols from ICMRs, and so the frequency of meeting we had every 15 days or within 10 days. So that was done, and the relaxation of timelines and amendment of protocols, SOPs, and the training, everything was done, and it taught us a lot. So that was, I think that was my experience.
I can visualize, ma'am, because I think one of your presentation slide in the conclusion do mention that we need to have a list of experts. Was this coming out from your experience that you had, and how do you suggest? Of course, GMC center like GMC is a busy center, with the quantum of work that you have. How do we take it, if somebody has to operationalize that suggestion? Any thoughts on that, Dr. Manani?
Yes, sir. Sir, like GMC, see, sir, I have been associated with other CCs as well besides GMC, and the experience is totally different. Like in GMC, we are conducting the trainings regularly, and we make each and every person, like Dr. Dakle told, he makes each and every one to talk in the meeting, and that really works because each and every one is aware of the responsibility. Like the lay person, he cannot come to the meeting without reviewing the insurance document, but this is not the case with other ECs, and I think many of the ECs in India, because we have ECs of different capabilities. So I would say that many of the time the EC members, they say, "Arey, we were not aware of this role of ours." So and they don't have any platform where they can get their get the answers to the queries. So that is why I feel that some platforms should be there for EC members, where experts are available, and they EC members can just put their queries on this platform and they can get the answer. So that is the idea.
Okay, okay. I mean, I can understand now why Dr. Dakle is so famous in you know I was hearing that. So, sir, any thoughts what tips and what method do you use, Dr. Ganesh? That this was one of the questions that was also asked by the audience.
Yes, yes.
How do
It was in
you
the chat
uh,
also.
right, that how do you make your layperson, social scientists, which are typically legal, who are non-scientific, how you them make them motivated, their roles are enabled? Any insights on that, tips and trick? Because I could see there are EC members joining from Coimbatore. Maybe this will be quite helpful. All your good tips.
As mentioned by Sonali, that every members of this ethics committee plays very important role, whether it is a clinician or even lay person. On the contrary, I will say lay person play the most important role in reviewing any clinical trial. And my experience, what Dr. Sonali has told, that in our ethics committee, specifically in AIMS Nagpur as well as in GMC Nagpur, we ask at least allow every layperson or scientific social member or the even lawyer, we ask them to ask at least one question to the principal investigator, and then only we can go ahead with the clinical trial approval or signing the presentee master. That is one way to ask them to ask the question. Second thing, give them the maximum training whenever it is possible. Sometimes it is not possible them to attend, but whenever there is next chance, even if it is in your institute or outside the institute, ask them to attend the training session so that it is very helpful to them to ask the question. Then we can ask them to read the protocol at their home, and they should be prepared to ask the question in the next time whenever PI present it to the ethics committee. Then encourage them as if they are as important as that of the other members of the EC, because other 4 or 5 members, they are from they are doctors, and these 3 people are not doctors, so they feel themselves that we are apart from this ethics committee. So ensure that they feel as if they are the members of ethics committee family. In that way they can also answer, ask the question or review the protocol in a better way. And my suggestion will be, if it, if ethics committee is able to take the separate workshop for them only to update these 3 people knowledge, because when I did one NABS assessment for West Bengal, we asked them to go for the training of these 3 people separately, not to include other persons, especially the doctor family persons. So they have agreed and they did that, and they got the good response from this. But before that, every member, whether it is clinician, whether it is a lay person, social worker, or the scientific person, one person is lay person, social worker, and the lawyer, they should know the individual responsibility. Once they know the individual responsibility, they will go into the detail of that chapter correctly. For example, lay person and social worker, they should go for informed consent process, and a lawyer should go for the clinical trial agreement in detail. If this procedure is agreed, then it is very easy for ethics committee to go ahead with the review protocol. And according to my knowledge, if every person contributes to their part in ethics committee, then ethics committee work becomes very easy and it can work in a better way in any clinical trial.
Very handy tools that you are suggesting, sir, and I'm sure this practices will help other EC members who are being part of the sessions clearly.
My thinking is that at least one question should be asked to every member of the ethics committee to the principal investigators, and all the person can ask the question only when they read the protocol at home carefully. So in that way they can go ahead with the review procedure.
Right. Very, very, very useful. I'm sure those who are hearing this, they will come up with this technique, customized technique for their own ECs functioning better clearly. Moving on to the next questions to Dr. Dakle again. Sir, we see a lot of discussions on the technology coming up, and with you being NABH assessors, you visit, you do inspections, you do the training, you're part of the ECs. How do the role of technology in the functioning of ECs that you see? And any thoughts on that? Because I could see there were questions from Rutuja. Just let me read that out, and it was a good question. I thought I can correlate clearly that how if everything is online, how do the auditors make sure that EC functioning is appropriate, and what are the best method to ensure that there is a honesty and sincerity? I mean, the EC itself works on those principles. So how auditor can make sure? Any thoughts on? I'm clubbing two questions, Dr. Darle.
As far as first question is concerned, how technology is helpful. So this is at present, as the Dipal madam is also said, what is the scenario before technology and what is the scenario after technology. And with the help of this technology also during COVID-19 situation, we did most of the meetings online. And previously, though the most of the people they were not techno savvy, but now members are comfortable with it. And most of the time we have conducted the online meetings also, and we accept the electronic versions as well as paper-based system for protocol as well as related documents for submission to EC. So in that way, it is useful. But again, it depends on ethics committee workload and administration if it is permitting it. As far as my sharing in this is concerned, I am of the opinion that though Dipal madam has said that it is approved by ICMR or DCGI, but even some notification is done by the ICMR or DCGI that online submission is accepted or everything will be accepted. Even if you go for monitoring online, it will be accepted. If it is crystal clear, so more of ethics committee they will go for this one. But sometimes it may happen that we did everything online. If suppose they will come and ask where is the hard copy of the protocol, then it may not be possible for every ethics committee to have that one. So if there is any modification or the notification from these regulatory bodies that they can go for online, it will be better to all the ethics committee to go for that one. At present, though it may be costly one, but depending on the workload, every ethics committee can take the decision whether they should go for technology or not. As far as the monitoring part is concerned, if it is scanned copies, just like NABH for ethics committee accreditation, previously they went for physical verification of all the documents. But because of the COVID, they have taken also the online scan copies of all the documents, though it is slightly difficult to go for online NABH accreditation of ethics committee. As I should mention that GMC Nagpur Ethics Committee is the first in India which has gone for ethics committee accreditation in government setup. But our our third assessment, they have gone for online scanned documents. Again, it was difficult, but all the member secretary and their staff, especially the Sonali, they have managed it. So even if it is scanned documents, we can go ahead with the what we can say, the review of all the documents for monitoring purpose.
Okay, okay, thank you. But is there not, sir, the ICMR states any form on the technology, especially with the ICMR guideline 2020 April 1
Now,
refers
I
up.
will give you one example. They have mentioned the ethics committee can use electronic
Okay.
consent, but they have not mentioned which type of electronic consent, what they should use, and only they have uttered the word electronic consent. My suggestion will be they should include all the things in electronic consent. What are the various types of electronic, how it is protected, how it has to be monitored. Everything should be mentioned so that it is very helpful for the ethics committee. N number of people can give the direction for different direction in different way. So for ethics committee, it becomes difficult. I asked the simple question, why ICM are not taking the training of ethics committee members? So the madam has said that we are having a very less number of people, but that should not be the excuse. It's the responsibility of the ICMR. If they are framing the guidelines, it is their responsibility to take the training of the ethics committee also.
Okay, okay, true. I mean, yeah, things has to evolve as we.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'll move on to Dr. Munali for you. I mean, what do you think, ma'am? If I am uh, what guidance suggestions that you will give if I am a new site, setting up my centers uh, for a research, and now with so much of COVID requirement coming up, there are lots of new sites coming up with their own ECs. What suggestions that you will give to them from your experience? What should they keep in mind clearly?
Yes, sir. Sir, I would say that the sites can have their own EC because I think it will be always be advantageous to have our own EC. So monitoring becomes easier for the sites, and the PI is also comfortable. Is presenting at his own site. So I think the the site can have their own EC, and they can select their members depending upon their qualifications, their interest and commitment to work for the EC. So, however, if it is not possible for the site, then as our guidelines mentioned, the ICMR guideline, they can go for an independent, go for a review through an independent ethics committees, and as the NDCT is saying, within a 50-kilometer radius, they can opt for certain EC. But it is always good to have your own EC, own site EC for your research proposals.
Okay, okay, sure. I think this will be helpful. And now with CDSU as well as DHR, reviewing, approving the registrations, much easier with the staff, quick response turnaround time. Yes, it will be helpful for institute to have their own ECs, at their disposal, clearly. Ma'am, one more question. How to maintain, this is a question from Manisha Thakur. How to maintain approval for study from all the EC member apart from chairman who will be giving his or approval through signature on the minutes of the meeting?
Sir, I didn't get the question.
How to, so question is little, I think what she is asking is how to maintain an approval of study from all the EC member apart from the chairperson who will be giving his or approval through signature on the minutes of the meeting. So chairperson is signing MOM, but how do you ensure that other members' consent are also there on the approvals? What process do you follow?
Sir, the decision in the committee, the ethics committee, it is always taken by a consensus, isn't it? It is not the chairperson who is deciding or the member secretary is deciding. So the EC members, they are all should be aware of this, that the approval is always in broad consensus. And this is documented. This consensus is always documented in the minutes of meeting. So even though the member secretary and chairperson, or sometimes only chairperson, or sometimes only member secretary, depending upon the EC's SOP, is signing the approval, it is always the members, the committee members who are deciding about the approval. So there is no doubt about it. I mean, there should be no doubt about it. it is all documented in the minutes of the meeting.
In addition to that, Rakeshji, what we did while writing the minutes of meeting, we write the minutes of meeting for every protocol. For example, title of the protocol, who said, if there are 6 members, what they have 6 members said individually, and last paragraph we write all the members consensually approved this protocol after submission of this and this document. This is one thing. Secondly, once the meeting is over, documents are prepared, minutes of meeting are over. For the next meeting also, before start of the meeting, we go for ratification of the previous minutes of meeting. So this ratification is done by 2 ways. One is minutes of meeting for individual protocol. At the same time, during the next meeting, we can ratify all the decisions taken in the previous minutes of meeting. So these 2 ways we can say that all the protocols are approved by this and this way.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, very true that not necessarily everybody signs, but everybody agrees to the
Yes,
documents which is generated. And if everybody is, to Manisha's question, if everybody is signing, it is making a more bureaucratic and it is a complex process to get everybody's signature. So this is how you can manage. And once the minutes, as Dr. Dakle said, are ratified, it is thorough, and this is the practice that they are following for many years. Yeah, thank you. Sir, but there is one more question, Dr. Dakle. I would switch to you. Mr. Chakravarti is asking, international sponsor, do they have same or similar insurance uh, requirement or liability clause for Indian subject as they have their own country? If there are MNC sponsors, so is the insurance for their global patients and Indian patient is similar?
What is the main purpose of insurance for any trial? If there are any serious adverse event or injury to the subject, then free medical management as well as financial compensation has to be paid by the sponsor to the subject. And until ethics committee is satisfied that if there is any injury to the subject and patient should get the financial compensation, and if the patient is getting financial compensation either from India or from the trial which is outside the India, there is no issue even if it is a insurance from the outside of the India. But all this depends on the clinical trial agreement, which is the responsibility of the lawyer. So lawyer will see whether even if it is from outside the India, and if there is anything wrong to the subject, and if there is a legal aspect, there should not be any worry that if there is any legal aspect, then the patient or the principal investigator or the sponsor has to go outside the India to fight against that compensation. So it's the responsibility of the lawyer to see that if anything wrong happens, all the details or all the insurance procedure will be happen in the India as a law in India. As trial is in India, all the things should be happening only in the India. So if that is true, then even if the insurance outside the India, ethics committee don't have any objection. But whatever the rule that have been asked by the DCGI, it should mention in the clinical trial agreement or the insurance.
So, sir, do you mean that the insurance which is issued for Indian part of the trial should have been issued by an Indian company, or the insurance should be have a legal liability representations of the insurance company that is issuing from India?
Up till now, what we have seen, more than 300 times we have approved, but most of the 99% they are having insurance of Indian origin, whether it is Bajaj or Reliance or other thing. Most of the time they are having Indian insurance. But whether it is outside the India, but my say will be, even if it is outside the India, patient should get the compensation if anything wrong happens to the subject. And by chance, if subject goes to the court, that court procedure should be in India only.
Right. Okay. One more question from Mr. Rahman. How much remuneration can be given with respect to the aspect of unbiased IEC member? I'm not sure what is unbiased means. But any thoughts on the remunerations to this can be to Dr. Munali or Dr. Ganesh, from your experiences. I know when Dr. Ganesh, just want to clarify, when Dr. Ganesh is referring Sonali, it refers to Dr. Mrinalini that is on the part of the panel discussion. You know, it's a
Okay,
just
okay.
for clarification for the audience. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Ganesh.
As far as remuneration to the ethics committee member, if I am not wrong, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
As far as remuneration to the ethics committee member, in the ICMR guideline, they have mentioned that whether the members is outside the institute or inside the institute, appropriate remuneration should be given. Now, how it is given, how much it should be given, whether it is cash, whether it is check, not mentioned anywhere. And again, how much it should be given, it depends on the ethics committee to ethics committee, and that to standard operating procedures. Now, some ethics committee are taking 30,000 per protocol, some ethics committee are taking 50,000, some ethics committee are taking 1.5 also. So if they are taking much more, they will have to go more to the ethics committee member. Some ethics committee may be discussing one protocol at one meeting. Some ethics committee may be discussing three protocols and one meeting. In such cases, remuneration to the subject may be increased. And in previous cases, if only one protocol, it may be lesser one. Again, there may be a chances that remuneration may be for per protocol also. So all it depends on standard operating procedure and financial capacity of the individual ethics committee. That is my say. If Mrinalini wants to add something, well and good.
Yes, sir, you have covered all the points. It will vary from EC to EC, and especially in the government institute, you know, the remuneration is not much. But any private ECs who are charging much for protocol reviews, they can definitely give the EC members a reasonable honorarium. And so whatever Dakle sir has said, it's all correct. I agree with him.
Okay, thank you. I know we are running more, but maybe one more questions to Deepal. Deepal, any thoughts? I know you have been, managing the challenges that you had. What were the major challenges that you had, in implementation of technology at your center? Because we are hearing the academic and the government views from Dr. Dakle and Dr. Mrinalini, but what's you had a, you may be having a different challenge at your center.
Yeah, Rakeshji, it's a human psychology. Any new change is always discomfort. So how can the EC can be separated from that? In starting, there was a apprehension from the ethics committee members, but it was navigated by me, my team, and the QCR team. So now they are used to, they are very much comfortable with the use of it. And they appreciate this initiative taken by us at our side.
Okay. So what you're saying is it's just matter of time. Once you start using, you get used to it. Is what you mentioned. Any other question? Any other thoughts? I know we are 6 minutes more than our time. Any other? I think there are questions. We will respond to them. There were some insurance related questions. There were questions on the SOPs that we were talking about. I think there were questions about the standard of care. I think we have responded them. Academic questions is also responded. So if there are any open, we will come back. Any comments before we move to the vote of thanks, Dr. Mrinalini, Dr. Ganesh, or Deepal?
It was a nice, what we can say, workshop or CME. All the, apart from me, all the two speakers were very nice. They have explained very well. And this was a multi-tasking or multi-parameters workshop. I talked on role of ethics committee member. Madam talked on role of EC during COVID, and Deepal Madam has talked on role of digitalization in ethics committee functioning. So hope that all the participants may be benefited from this. And once again, I am very thankful to Rakeshji and his team for giving this opportunity to talk on various issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that insight. Can I Request Sarah for a vote of thanks, Sarah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
बंद करून द्या ते. मस्त.
So thank you very much, Mr. Rakesh, for moderating the session very, and especially I would like to thank Dr. Dakle for a detailed overview on what are the roles and responsibilities of individual EC members. And I hope all the EC members who have joined this session have benefited, and now they'll be even more responsible for their role in the ethics committee. And I also would like to thank Dr. Mrunalini for sharing your experiences and the challenges you faced and how you have managed them in EC functioning during the COVID situation. And I would like to thank Ms. Deepal for helping us to understand the role of technology in EC management and how your site as a digitalized EC has managed the clinical studies during COVID time. Now, I would especially like to thank Mr. Rakesh once again for moderating the panel discussion with interesting questions, and I hope the audiences got their most of the audiences got their responses, and we'll definitely get back give the responses to all your questions posed. Thank you. And any session without participants is incomplete. So I appreciate all the participants for joining with us today, and I do hope the session helped you understand better the ethics committee's management and functioning during the COVID. I would like to inform the participants that the certificates will be issued to all those who have registered and participated in the webinar. Before I close, we recommend all of you to get vaccinated when your turn comes so that we conquer COVID. Thank you once again and wish you all a happy weekend. Stay safe. Looking forward for future interactions with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good day. Bye.